Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate 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 Vasudevaya.
So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 4, and today we have text 27.
27? There's no purport to 27?
Yes, we'll read 27, but we'll just repeat 28 together. And is it possible to ask for the glass of water? Holding there. Yes. So, I'll read this myself. Yada deveshu vedeshu Koshu vipreshu sadhushu Dharme mai cha vidvesha Savashu vinashati. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. When one is envious of the demigods who represent the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of the Vedas, which give all knowledge, of the cows, Brahmanas, Vaishnavas, and religious principles, and ultimately of me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he and his civilization will be vanquished without delay. So now we have text 28, now we can repeat. Kindly repeat after me. Nirvairaya Prasantaya.
Nirvairaya Prasantaya.
Nirvairaya Prasantaya.
Nirvairaya Prasantaya.
Svasutaya Mahatmane.
Svasutaya Mahatmane.
Svasutaya Mahatmane.
Svasutaya Mahatmane.
Aradaya Yadadruye.
Pradaya Yadadruye.
Aradaya Yadadruye.
Pradaya Yadadruye.
Tanishepi Varoditam.
Tanishepi Varoditam.
Tanishepi Varoditam.
Tanishepi Varoditam.
Nirvaraya Prasantaya.
Nirvairaya Prasantaya.
Svasutaya Mahatmane.
Svasutaya Mahatmane.
Aradaya Yadadruye.
Pradaya Yadadruye.
Tanishepi Varoditam.
Tanishepi Varoditam.
Nirvairaya Prasantaya.
Nirvairaya Prasantaya.
Svasutaya Mahatmane.
Svasutaya Mahatmane.
Pradaya Yadadruye.
Pradaya Yadadruye.
Tanishepi Varoditam.
Tanishepi Varoditam.
Nirvairaya Prasantaya.
Nirvairaya Prasantaya.
Svasutaya Mahatmane.
Svasutaya Mahatmane.
Pradaya Yadadruye.
Pradaya Yadadruye.
Tanishepi Varoditam.
Tanishepi Varoditam. Nirvairaya Prasantaya.
Nirvairaya Prasantaya.
Svasutaya Mahatmane.
Svasutaya Mahatmane.
Pradaya Yadadruye.
Pradaya Yadadruye.
Tanishepi Varoditam.
Tanishepi Varoditam.
Nirvairaya Prasantaya.
Nirvairaya Prasantaya.
Svasutaya Mahatmane.
Svasutaya Mahatmane.
Pradaya Yadadruye.
Pradaya Yadadruye.
Tanishepi Varoditam.
Tanishepi Varoditam.
Prasantaya
Svasutaya Mahatmane
Svasutaya Mahatmane
Praradaya Yadadruyat
Praradaya Yadadruyat
Dhanisyapi Varoditam
Anisyapi Varorjitam
Nirvairaya,
Nirvairaya,
who is without enemies.
who is without
without
enemies.
enemy.
Prashantaya,
Prasantaya,
very sober and peaceful.
Very sober and peaceful.
Svasutaya,
Svasutaya
unto his own son.
unto his own son.
Mahatmane,
Mahatmane
who is a great devotee.
who is a great devotee.
Paradaya,
Praradaya,
Prahlad Maharaj.
Prahlad Maharaj,
Yada,
Yada,
when
when
Druyet
Druyat
will commit violence.
will commit violence,
Hanishe,
Danishe,
I shall kill.
I shall kill.
Api,
Api,
although Parapujitam,
Bharatitam,
blessed by the boons of Lord Brahma.
Blessed by the boons of Lord Brahma.
Translation. When Hiranyakashipu teases the great devotee Prahlad, his own son, who is peaceful and sober and has no enemy, I shall kill Hiranyakashipu immediately, despite the benedictions of Brahma. Purport. Of all sinful activities, an offense to a pure devotee or Vaishnava is the most severe. An offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava is so disastrous that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has compared it to a mad elephant that enters a garden and causes great havoc by uprooting many plants and trees. If one is an offender at the lotus feet of a Brahmana or Vaishnava, his offences uproot all his auspicious activities. One should therefore very carefully guard against committing Vaishnava Parad or offences at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Here the Lord clearly says that although Hiranyakashipu had received benedictions from Lord Brahma, these benedictions would be null and void as soon as he committed an offence at the lotus feet of Prahlad Maharaj, his own son. A Vaishnava like Prahlad Maharaj is described herein as Nirvaira, having no enemies. Elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam 3.25-21 it is said, Ajata Shatravaha Shanta Sadhava Sadhu Bhushana. A devotee has no enemies. He is peaceful. He abides by the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime. A devotee does not create enmity with anyone, but if someone becomes his enemy, that person will be vanquished by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, despite whatever benedictions he may have received from other sources. Hiranyakashipu was certainly enjoying the fruitful results of his austerities, but here the Lord says that as soon as he committed an offence at the lotus feet of Prahlad Maharaj, he would be ruined. One's longevity, opulence, beauty, education, and whatever else one may possess as a result of pious activities cannot protect one if one commits an offence at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Despite whatever one possesses, if one offends the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, he will be vanquished. Nirvairaya prasantaya svasutaya mahatmane paradaya yadadruye danishyepi varojitam. When Hiranyakashipu teases the great devotee Prahlad, his own son, who is peaceful and sober and who has no enemy, I shall kill Hiranyakashipu immediately, despite the benedictions of Brahma. So we can speak a lot on these two verses, and even the first verse, which doesn't have any purport, there's actually a lot to be discussed within that. we hear, just read this verse again. This is verse 27. When one is envious of the demigods who represent the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of the Vedas, which give all knowledge of the cows, Brahmanas, Vaishnavas, and religious principles, and ultimately of me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he and his civilization will be vanquished without delay. So, this is relating to Hiranyakashipu, because Hiranyakashipu was greatly envious of the demigods. He was constantly terrorizing, harassing them, and especially also he said that in order to finish off the demigods, we have to finish off the Vedic culture. We have to stop the sacrifices. So kill the Brahmanas and whatever is there for the Brahmanas in order to make the sacrifice, like cows. So Hiranyakashipu also became inimical towards the cows, and even to the point of killing cows, so that the sacrifices would be stopped. No ghee would be there, no sacrifice could be performed. And therefore also of religious principles, that these sacrifices, which is religious principles to perform sacrifice, for a Brahmana is a religious principle to perform sacrifice, that this should be stopped. So he became envious towards the religious principles, that they should be stopped, finished. And ultimately he wanted to kill the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because in the form of Varaha, the Lord had killed his brother Hiranyaksha. So Hiranyakashipu wanted to take his revenge by killing Lord Vishnu. So this is Hiranyakashipu, so the Lord says that when such a person displays envy like this, and then the Lord says he and his civilization will be vanquished without delay. So those who harbor envy like this, they will be destroyed by the Lord. This is what the Lord himself says. And the Lord says specifically, when Hiranyakashipu teases the great devotee Prahlad, his own son, who is peaceful and sober and who has no enemy, I shall kill Hiranyakashipu immediately, despite the benediction of Brahma. So the Lord says that this is the drop, Already he is destroyed, because of this envy he has displayed. He's already finished. His path to destruction is already cleared. But as soon as he does this, as soon as he touches his son, Prahlad Maharaj, then immediately I shall come, I shall kill him. So this is the Lord speaking. So then we may say, for practical instructions, what can we take out of it? Because this is spoken about Hiranyakashipu, but it also has a lot of practical relevance to the present condition of society and our own personal situation. As you know, this present society, wholesale slaughter of cows is going on, like that. And real religion is actually not being encouraged or promoted by the government, by the authorities. So we may say that this very society we're living in is envious towards cows and religious principles. And you may say all of these things here, which are mentioned as being neglected in present-day society. And then, so that's not a good situation. That means that society as a whole is on a clear path to destruction. And this, of course, Prabhupada pointed out many times. The rascal blind leaders who are leading into the darkest regions of hell. So he will point out this is actually the case. We have a Hiranyakashipu government, you may say, a government in the line of Hiranyakashipu, and the path of that government is destruction. So this we find again and again. Prabhupada he makes clear in the page of the Bhagavatam. So that's to know the situation we're in, just the society we're in, and the place in which we're living. And then there is the personal instruction. What value is here for us as individuals? Because We were born and raised in this demonic society which violates all of these personalities, all of these living entities, cows, brahmanas, Vaishnavas, religious principles, demigods, ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We have been contaminated by this mentality from our very birth. So that means that even though grace has fallen upon us by the association of the pure representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the person of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada, then this residue from this contamination, this will cause disturbance and make life difficult for us. So one may want to ask, or should want to ask, then how can we root out this contamination? Because time and again we feel disturbed. Even though we are on the path of devotional service, we may have accepted initiation from a bona fide spiritual master, and we are engaged in the practice of devotional service, but still we find we're not completely happy. We're not perfectly peaceful like that. So, that being the case, then we might find that there is some contamination within our hearts that relates, that will be pointed out in these things. That there will be a finger pointing within the contamination within the heart. So we could try to shed some light on that, to try to see how do we find that contamination, how do we deal with it. Well, that's the relevant question, that's what we'd like to know. So, envious of the demigods, and who represent the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of the Vedas, which give all knowledge, of the cows, Brahmanas, Vaishnavas, and religious principles. So this one thing I thought about, which is relevant, to be envious of the religious principles. I thought this could be relevant to speak a little bit about. As we know, we have religious principles. We should rise early for Mangalarti, attend Mangalarti. We should follow the 4 regulative principles. We should chant 16 rounds. These are religious principles which have been given to us. And we know we should follow them. But we see one mistake we can be there, that if we somehow, we're not up to the strength, spiritual strength, to carry out these principles nicely, regularly and steadily. What we may see that if that is the case, then we see sometimes when we make a philosophy that says it's okay, I'm not up to the mark, I'm not following this. So, but that's okay. Somehow that's the proper standard. What I'm representing, somehow that I'm not doing this. I don't feel inspired to do this. But somehow what I'm doing, that's the proper standard. And to try to make a philosophy out of it, that is something which is, then we become envious towards the religious principle. Because then we say that this principle is not important, it can be neglected. It is, so actually it's we want to kill the religious principle. And that's Hiranyakashipu. And you actually see this we have to be on guard. Because we know very well what Prabhupada gave us. That's very clear. Prabhupada made it very clear about what he expected us to follow. So if we set aside that, the standard Prabhupada gave, and said now we need to do something else, now we need to have a different standard, then that may very be that out of personal attachment, personal sense gratification, we're not up to the standard, we're not able to follow it. So then we make a philosophy that is not needed, is not important. That's when we come in the line of Hiranyakashipu. And this we have to be aware of, how we justify our own weaknesses, that the things we're not able to follow, how we deal with that. If we just honestly say, okay, it's because of my weakness, I'm not able to follow it, I'm not able to live up to the standard, and that's my fault. It's not the fault of a religious principle that I'm not able to follow it, it's my shortcoming. I'm not able to come up to the mark. And then just accept the humble position, I'm not up to the standard, and be honest about it. Then, we'll not be on the spot. But if we make it a philosophy to justify that I'm not following it, that's actually correct that I'm not following, then it's a problem. Then that is the Hiranyakashipu mentality. And also said that we may be weak and not be able to follow. But if we keep ourselves in that position, I'm weak, I can't follow, and just maintain this as a status quo and don't try to do anything about it, that will also invite the punishment of the Lord. Eventually we will also be punished for that, because that's to maintain material attachment even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. On this matter, that's a nama parad, that's an offense against the holy name, and that will block our progress. We're not able to advance beyond nama parad. So we should know that this failure to follow the religious principles, we should understand what we're doing there. If we're making a philosophy out of it that we're not following, or if we're simply just being satisfied to be in that weak condition without any endeavor to improve ourselves, that we have to deal with. That should be corrected. If that's our condition, we should know we have to strive, we have to struggle to improve ourselves. Otherwise, eventually, we'll get some punishment. Some rectification will be there by the Lord or by the agency of the Lord. So that is one practical point. And I wanted to speak a little about this, about the regulative principles, about you may say sinful life in general. You may say that sinful life you can tell in there's gross sinful activity. We have the 4 regulative principles, like illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, gambling. We have that, and we have more subtle sinful activity. So there's one verse in the Bhagavatam. I actually wanted to quote that. How to deal with that. And there is one verse, I think I will just cite it off my memory. That is basically saying one can stop envy by stopping sense gratification. Have you come across a verse like that?
Yeah,
There's a verse like that, yeah.
I don't know.
I have it in my notes, but somehow I wasn't able to find it. So I will just leave it and go on to another verse, which is a follow-up on it. And it basically says that one can stop envy. Like this verse today is very much about envy. And it says that one can stop envy by stopping sense gratification. And actually, how to stop sense gratification. There's a verse in the 11th canto, chapter 10, verse 20. That's how to stop sense gratification. So you want to stop envy, but in order to stop envy, we have to stop sense gratification. In order to stop sense gratification, we have to meditate on one thing. And can anybody know what that one thing we should meditate on? Yes, book.
The Lord.
Actually, it's actually not in this case. Yeah.
Isn't it that we should meditate on the futility and the stupidity of sense gratification?
This is not exactly what is in the verse here, but there's a good suggestion. Okay, Sophia, you have your hand.
I was just wondering if there's something about serving, because if you are envious of someone, then you should serve.
There's also a very good suggestion, but that's not the particular verse here. Okay, so I think I'll go to the point.
Serve one superior? Is there something to do with that?
Actually not.
Because
Okay, we had enough. Huh?
Death.
Okay, you got the last bit was like, we read what this verse has to say. Is Konvata sukayati enam kamuva mitrantike agatam niyamanasya vajyaseva natustida. And it said, death is not at all pleasing, and since everyone is exactly like a condemned man being led to the place of execution, what possible happiness can people derive from material objects or the gratification they provide?